welcome back to What the Fats. Today I have on an amazing guest, someone I've actually been following on Instagram. She was introduced to me by my great friend Josh Perry, and the minute he showed me like her Instagram and told me what she was all about, I was like, I gotta have her on. Like, she's incredible. She has an incredible story and so much to share with the world. And on top of that, she's covered almost head to toe in these awesome tattoos that I'm like, wow, it's literally like this work of art. But Paige, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm working on the whole bodysuit tattoo thing. It can't happen soon enough.
I see that every time. I'm like, it's like a new post. I'm like, that's it. There's a new one. You're like, every time. It's like this awesome like whole art feature, and I'm sure each one has their own story within it. So that's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, when people say they're addictive, like it truly is. It starts with one, and then it just like gets out of hand.
It does. It really does. So can you tell people a little bit of your background, some of the obstacles you faced in the past? I know you're a huge body positivity advocate. Like, can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced in the past and kind of what your mission is now?
Yes. So I started my Instagram to give myself and others who struggle with body dysmorphia or disordered eating a voice. I noticed the more that I held myself accountable and kind of like called myself out for my own bullshit, the more on track I stayed. And also, I guess backtrack a little bit. I always felt like super alone in my suffering and felt like it was very unrelatable. And then the moment I started speaking about it, I became like the most relatable person to everybody else. So in continuing to have these conversations, I'm working towards eliminating the stigma that surrounds like mental health issues, disordered eating, and just want to like fuel that whole body positive movement through just like unapologetically being myself, which has taken a long time to have the confidence to pursue on a daily basis without getting like derailed or discouraged. But basically my background is I grew up with two parents who were competitive bodybuilders. My mom was Miss Natural Olympia in 1998 out of everyone in the world. My parents didn't focus on what we ate growing up. So I feel like I've heard this from so many people on your podcast. Like, I grew up eating like Gushers and Pop-Tarts and like kid cuisine, TV, microwavable dinners. If it didn't go in the microwave or I couldn't open it immediately, like I didn't eat it basically. If it took any kind of work, it wasn't going on my plate. So when I got into high school, I didn't know how to take care of myself and feed myself. I played sports, so I was very active. But when I stopped playing sports, I started to put on a little bit of weight. Nothing to like be concerned about, but kind of similar to your story. Yep. I just wasn't like taking care of myself and paying attention, being mindful in my consumption. And I went through a little bit of bullying my freshman year. And my way of dealing with it, because I felt so out of control, was to shift inward and control what I had control over, which at the time was food. So I developed anorexia when I was 15 years old, and it became my whole identity. I'm an extremist and a perfectionist. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it the best. So even my eating disorder, I was super hardcore. Like, I wanted to be the skinniest, the thinnest, the best anorexic that ever existed, basically. And then I ended up in my first treatment center, and what I got out of that was anorexia is really challenging and bulimia is not so hard. So why not just be bulimic? And girls there showed me how to do that whole thing, which, I mean, looking back, it's like really messed up. At the time, obviously I couldn't see that. But so then I shifted from anorexia to bulimia, and I was bulimic until I was 23 years old, which is when I found yoga and whatnot. But even before that happened, I had been on prescriptions since I was 11 years old. And the older I got, the more prescriptions I was on. And the more treatment centers I went into, the more prescriptions I came out of there taking. So like Xanax, Adderall, Klonopin, Ativan, sleeping pills, all of that stuff. And I just wanted to escape life at any means necessary. So I was abusing my prescriptions. I was drinking. I was doing party drugs, just anything not to be a part of this experience. And what ultimately ended up happening when I was 19 years old was I paralyzed my stomach and gave myself gastroparesis from the constant purging and binging and the mass amounts of chemical prescriptions I was introducing to my body on a daily basis. I ended up in Mayo Motility Clinic for about 9 months, and they didn't know what to do with me. I went in 2 to 4 times a week and would just eat pieces of radioactive bread or eggs and then lay on a table while they watched it not digesting inside of me. And their long-term solution after that was, you can be on a feeding tube for the rest of your life. And I was 19 years old. Or they were going to put like a pacemaker type thing in my stomach. So every time I ate, I would just like jumpstart my stomach and like cross my fingers that like that helped. Because basically gastroparesis is the valve from your stomach to your intestines, it closes. So I would eat, and then food would just sit in my stomach, rotting and fermenting until it made me sick, and I would throw it up whole. So I left Mayo being like, I mean, obviously I wasn't like a big fan of eating, but I wasn't ready to not ever be able to eat real food again. So I ended up being referred to this guy named Frank, who was an acupuncturist, and his family had been in Chinese medicine for like 10,000 years or something crazy like that. And we started doing acupuncture 6 times a week for 6 weeks. And he basically told me that my Chinese spleen was secreting so much bile and acid into my body, it was making me septic. And my body was just like, it was shutting down as a means of self-preservation, basically. So he got all of that under control. And he told me about more like a naturopathic GI doctor that I went and started seeing, who told me about this prescription that is very much not FDA approved, but it's legal in every other country in the world. And all it does is promote movement. So I got a hold of that, started taking it. And then he also told me, because this was back in 2009, before cannabis was legal in Arizona, but for my nausea, he was like, I highly suggest you start using cannabis. I don't know where you're going to get it, but I highly recommend it. So I've been using cannabis as a medicine for 10 years now as a means to control my appetite, my nausea, because I still have a very weak stomach. I mean, I did a lot of damage when I was younger, and there's only so much of it you can undo. But that definitely helped me live a more comfortable life. And then once I was able to get my health under control, I had a few more like personal bumps in the road, basically hit my bottom, and ended up in a yoga class. And I left yoga thinking, like, this is literally the best thing I've ever experienced since first discovering Xanax. And I need more of this. And I knew that like the prescription thing wasn't really working for me anymore, but I didn't have like another answer. So I got off all my prescriptions, got into a yoga teacher training, quit talking to everyone who was in my life, because I figured like if they were really there for me, they'd still be there for me when I was ready. And if they weren't, well then, bye. Good riddance, talk to you later, whatever. Right. So got into yoga in 2012, and the community of people, just like the perspective on life, it was like the first time that I was allowed to be imperfect, but that didn't make me less of a person, if that makes sense.
Right, yep.
My whole life I had been told basically like, there's something wrong with you. Like there's something very wrong with you. No, like you shouldn't feel this way. These thoughts aren't normal. Like I just felt unrelatable, like I said in the beginning. So walking into a room of other broken people or real humans, like other people going through the same human experience, even if it's not the exact same, it's understandable, helped me shift my perspective and help me understand things that were as simple as like attracts like, positivity attracts more positivity. What you're putting out there is what you're getting back. I started implementing these things into my life and actually noticed them working positively for me. And after so much noticing, it doesn't really make sense to revert back to your old ways. So 7 years later, here I am teaching yoga, leading retreats, trying to spread this message of body positivity and mindfulness. And last October is when I started taking keto and, well, really, I'll say no sugar and carb conscious very seriously. I do like a keto carnivore blend, but cutting sugar out of my diet and carbs was the best thing I've ever done for my mental health. I had no idea, even after cutting prescriptions and having a consistent yoga practice and a really strong, you know, inner circle and support, I was still all over the place. I felt very like bipolar, but not emotionally, if that makes sense. I just like couldn't be even throughout the day. So in October, I went through a breakup and was basically just like, enough is enough. Like, I want to get my life under control for me, and I'm tired of eating to appease other people or to like make other people comfortable, like especially in social settings. Like, oh, why are you being weird, or why are you not eating that? And I've now noticed that in standing up for my personal beliefs and choosing not to eat things and sticking to it, people really, really respect that.
That's incredible. Wow. That's
a lot, I know.
No, that is a lot, and I want to dive into some of these pieces because your story truly is relatable, and I love that. Like, it took you, and because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are either listening to this podcast or will watch this and might be in a similar situation where like they're afraid to come out of their shell, and like you were like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And I talk a lot about anchors, and for you, really, like one of those anchors was finding peace in this yoga piece. And I want to dive into that because I that is a very new area for me. I know all of the benefits of yoga, or I know some of them. I don't know all of them, but I should do it more, and I need to do it more, and I need to come to one of your classes and do one. I'll make sure Josh and I fly out and like do a whole class or a whole weekend. But can you talk to a little bit about like what it was like? What was it about the yoga piece? I know you talked about like now you're with like-minded people. But were you able to like connect at a deeper level and be like, you know what, like I'm really at peace with myself. I really feel like this is what I need to decrease my amount of stress that I'm having. What is some of the things that yoga offers and that you found peace with?
So at first, it really just was my stubbornness that kept me there because I refused to suck.
Love that.
And I was terrible. Like, I played sports my whole life, and I worked out for the wrong reasons, but like thought that I was strong and fit and whatever. And like, this is just a whole other thing. And I got my ego handed to me like the very first day. So wanting to be better, but then also, I want to say like 3 months into my first 200-hour teacher training, my teachers were teaching us headstand, and there was like 40 people in my teacher training. So they split us into two groups, and we were in two separate rooms, and I was with the assistant instructor, and I couldn't do a headstand, not even against the wall. And I, try. I'm just getting like super frustrated, which is exactly why it's not working. So I'm basically creating resistance. And I stood up, turned to my teacher and said, "Are you trying to make me look stupid?" And then I just left. I just walked out of the room like I was 12 years old throwing a temper tantrum, got in my car and left. And then, like, the old me would have never gone back and would have just been like, F those people, like, I don't deserve this. But I was like, okay, no. Like, I'm spending money on this. Like, this is working towards, like, my new life, whatever that looks like. I need to go back, and I need to say sorry. I need to own what I did, because what I did was I feel shame surrounding it, and I don't like to do things that cause me to feel shame. So I was like, I need to undo this. So I went and I apologized and said, I'm so sorry for being so explosive and acting out like that. I don't know what, got over me. And my teacher said, and this changed my whole life, she said, "That's fine. I chose not to allow your words to affect me. You don't have to apologize." And I was like, holy shit. That was the first time that I physically exploded at someone and was like angry, and they didn't express anger back towards me. And I was like, these people are like really onto something. Like the whole controlling your emotions thing. And then the deeper I got into it, so I love the physical practice because it gives me an energetic outlet. I have like extreme ADD. I'm sure you can tell I talk like 1,000, miles a minute, and I'm super expressive with like my body language and whatever. But for my ADD, I have to have a positive outlet. And before, it was prescriptions. I never took the time to find something to put my extra energy into so that I could sit down and focus and be productive. So that's what yoga does for me. And it makes me feel very beautiful. Like in my movements, I feel like I can just totally lose myself, and it doesn't matter what I look like because I feel really, really good. And the piece that I practice more than anything now, that is the reason why I keep showing up on my mat, is the mindfulness element. And mindfulness means to pay attention on purpose. And through paying attention on purpose, you can become an observer of yourself and a witness. And through being a witness, you can create change if you will. You also have the ability to create a pause or a space in between reacting to something or not. So if you say something that's upsetting to me, I can choose how I'm going to react. And if I create a pause, I can be mindful in my reaction to that. So, I mean, if you yell at me and I really want to yell back, like I can totally do that. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as I own what I'm doing. But I can also choose not to. So I can't get mad at you for getting mad at me because I'm like, that's something that I'm projecting onto you, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the mindfulness piece is everything. It's just completely shifted how I look at the world now and how I look at other people. I know if someone's mad, that's not me. You're having a bad day and you're just choosing to take it out on me. I'm not, like my teacher did with me, I'm not going to take that on. That's your stuff.
I love that perspective. I love that. And the mindfulness piece is absolutely huge, and I think it can radically change someone's entire life. And clearly, like you're a living, breathing example of that. That's amazing. I want to jump back a second into you overcoming like really that eating disorder, because I think some people are going to hear about that and be like, how did she do that? Like how is that possible?
It was very hard.
Exactly. And I want to talk about like, were there anchors that like are guidance that you had? Were you like, you know what, I'm all on my own, like I'm doing this, there's no, like I'm just gonna go forward? Or did you have people to kind of lean on, some downs, some ups? What was that process like for someone who might be going through someone and overcoming something like that?
So for me, I, at least in the beginning, did not have anyone in my support group, but that's also because I pushed everyone away for so long. It's not that they didn't want to be there for me. I didn't allow them to be there for me. I didn't know how to ask for help. I felt really guilty taking anything from anyone or like putting anyone out to like go out of their way for me. So in the beginning, I mean, when I say I hit my bottom, like I hit a rock that was like 10 feet below my rock bottom. Like I literally had nothing else except for to be honest. So I was just honest. This is exactly what I'm feeling today. This is, what I need. This is how I'm dealing with it. And through other people starting to like reach out, I started to develop tools and, a network of other people that I could go to. And now I have friends who I can be brutally honest with. And I know that they're not going to judge me for my thoughts, even if they're like, not the nicest or most pleasant. So I think having people who truly are going to be non-judgmental with you is super, super important. Holding yourself accountable, but also reminding yourself, like, you're not perfect and you're never going to be perfect. I really had to let go of like the self-hate I had for myself. And it wasn't even like, I guess I just got to a point where it just seemed so ridiculous to keep wasting this life that I have, hating myself for the little bit of fat I have on my stomach or my thighs or whatever. So in October, I actually, because I'll be really transparent and honest, I've struggled with disordered eating, I would say, up until October of last year. So even though I was able to overcome anorexia and bulimia, because I stopped participating in those behaviors, I didn't know how to feed myself. And I tried so many different things throughout the years. I mean, I'm a yogi, so obviously I've tried being a vegan and vegetarian and done that whole thing. I'm type O. I don't know if you know anything about like the blood type diet, but I never felt good eating vegan or vegetarian. So I've always defaulted back to meat, but I didn't used to care about my food sources, where I was getting it from. I didn't know anything about sugar or carbs or that different foods metabolize differently or FODMAP diet or any of that kind of stuff. So in October, I decided that I was just going to just do everything different, because clearly what I was doing wasn't working for me. So I had previously been working out in the gym. Like I was doing 2-a-days, like 6 or 7 days a week. And all I was doing was getting like bigger. Like I store my fat in my muscles. So I didn't look fat. I just looked full, but I felt dense and uncomfortable. And I didn't like how I felt moving around, like just in this world. So I'm like, this isn't making me happy either. So I quit working out. And another huge reason for stopping working out was I realized that I was going to have a lot less energy, like initially moving into the no sugar, no carb thing. And I didn't want my focus to be consumption. I didn't want to constantly be worrying about what I was going to be eating and when I was going to be eating it. Because also at that time I was doing the bodybuilder diet, which was you eat 6 times a day, smaller meals, but it's basically nothing's real. It's protein powder, protein bars, like, and I didn't feel good eating that stuff either, but that's what I was told to do, you know, and that works for some people. It didn't work for me. So I stopped working out. I kept doing yoga, but just like restorative yin practices. And then I decided I'm doing this or I'm not doing this. So all or nothing. I'm not half-assing the sugar thing or carb thing or justifying like, oh, well, you know, this works is okay for, no, nothing. No fruit, no carbs that metabolizes sugar, no corn, no carrots, no beets, no nothing. And it was super, super hard. And I was probably not a very pleasant person in the first week. And I also decided to do intermittent fasting at this time too, because food control, well, it had control over my life. It was all I thought about. And I was desperate to have control over my brain again, basically. And when I started like really diving into sugar addiction, I was like, this is a drug. This is literally a drug. And that's why I'm acting like a crazy person when I don't have it. And now I notice if I do have a little bit of sugar, it's literally all I can think about for the rest of the day because I've introduced that drug to me. So like, from being someone who's also had experience being addicted to real life drugs, I'm like, this is legit the exact same thing that I experienced before when I was abusing like my Xanax and my Adderall and whatnot. So I now, through mindfulness, have conversations with myself around meal times. Like, is it really worth it? Like, you know that you're not going to feel good. You know that it's going to disrupt your day. You know that you're not going to be able to think about anything else. So why would you eat this? And usually that's all I need to have, you know, said to me is, it's going to make you feel shitty. So why would you do that on purpose, you know? So I've been doing it for a little bit more than 6 months now. And I'm to the point where sugar's not something that I ever even think about anymore. I don't crave carbs. Like, I truly don't. And I have so much energy and I'm never hungry. And I've kind of like worked the intermittent fasting. I do it in my own way. I don't even know if it's technically like intermittent fasting or if it's just like a 2-meal-a-day thing, but I wake up and I eat first thing in the morning because I'm compulsive and obsessive. So I don't have to think about, is it noon yet? So I can eat. So I just eat, get it out of the way so I don't have to think about it. And then I don't eat all day and then I eat a big meal at dinner. So I'm super productive and focused during the daytime. Because it's not that I'm depriving myself. I mean, I eat like 6 pieces of bacon for breakfast, eggs, avocado, I smother it in cheese. Like, I am not depriving myself by any means. And then dinner is, you know, another extravagant feast all in its own. It's all really, really good food, but I don't think about it. And I'm also not, I don't want to say like I've limited myself by cutting those things out because like there's still so much that's available to you. But when you're not like, the world is my oyster and I could literally eat anything, like it doesn't consume you. Why even think about it? I know that I'm going to eat, you know, the few things that are in my fridge and they're going to be good. And it's just, I guess, my way of like taking control of my life again.
I love that. I love that. And the more and more you're talking about this, you remind me exactly like my friend Karen Thompson. So she has a book called Sugar Free Revolution. And very, very similar story. Like, I have to find a way to connect you guys because both beautiful women that have battled with, like, she struggled with an eating disorder. She was addicted to, like, I believe it was like cocaine, and she talks about this openly in her book. And literally then, like, then it was like sugar into cocaine into sugar, and then she went on this whole sugar-free revolution and has never felt better. She's got an amazing family now, and it's amazing to see, like, two strong, passionate women overcoming some of these adversities, and, like, I love you sharing that. I love you, like, sharing, like, your insights into what that looks like and how that related to, like, hey, maybe, like, sugar was a piece of this. Like, at the end of the day, it was something that I wasn't comfortable eating a certain way, and now I've made changes to my life. I've made changes to how I eat. And so I kind of want to dig deeper and ask you a little bit about what your day looks like. You talked a little bit about eating, but, like, do you do any, like, which is awesome. I love that concept, like, eating, just, like, I'm the same way, 2 meals a day. But, like, a daily regimen for, like, your intent for the day, like, do you have, like, a morning routine that you do? I'm always curious to ask about that.
My friends make fun of me because I'm, like, 85 years at heart, like 85 years old at heart. But, like, my favorite thing to do in the morning, like, I'm such a morning person. So even if I don't have to get up, I'll still get up at, like, 6:30, have a cup of coffee, black coffee, and sit and watch the local news. Just to, like, ease into my day. I don't know why. It's just, like, it's very therapeutic for me. I really, really love it. So I'll do that, and I make myself breakfast. Eat before I start working. It's really important to me that I'm not on my phone or not on my computer while I'm eating, because you're not being mindful. You're not paying attention. You're just mindlessly consuming, and that's why you don't feel full or satisfied, or you can't remember half the things that you ate because you weren't really participating in those moments. So before I jump in, I work from home too. So basically eat breakfast and then start working. And I have the worst work-life balance ever because I am obsessed with everything that I do for work. Like, it's so much fun and it brings me so much joy. I just, like, can't. But I don't really have, like, a daily routine, and that's because, okay, so 3 years ago, I was living in Los Angeles, and I read this book that was called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. He also wrote The Untethered Soul. But the book basically is an autobiography, and he talks about how when he decided to surrender to the universe and just say yes to everything, especially when it made him uncomfortable, how his life has unfolded in the most beautiful way that he never could have expected. He went from being this hippie who was, like, meditating in the woods, trying to figure out why his mind wouldn't stop, to now being the owner of a company that makes $300 million a year, like a software development company. And he never went to college or did any of that stuff. Like, all of this just happened because he kept saying yes to opportunity. So I decided 3 years ago that I wanted to say yes to opportunity as well. So now I like to I've set up my life in a way that I have the ultimate freedom, which is the freedom of my time to do with it what I wish. So, like, 2 weeks ago, someone reached out to me and was like, hey, we want you to come out to Cancun to do this photo shoot. There, done, buy my plane ticket. I will be there whenever you need me. Got back. Someone else invited me to do something cool up north. So, I mean, this whole podcast thing, like, if I like to keep my days, I mean, they're structured in my own, like, weird way, but they don't look any certain way, I guess, if that makes any sense.
No, that's fun. That is really awesome. I like that. I like that, like, hey, you're willing and you're able to say yes and go do and experience and do what most people would be like, no, I can never do that. That's really, really neat. I like that.
And like, being someone who has ADD, I feel like I'm constantly, like, doing everything and here, there, and everywhere. So, like, I do most of my work from my phone. So I'm constantly answering emails and text messages and, like, Instagram collaboration type stuff and whatnot. So I feel like I downplay my work because it doesn't feel like I'm working when I do it, but I'm always working. I'm never working.
Right. But you're passionate about it, and it's something that I think pulls you rather than you pushing against it. I think most people live in a world where they have to push and they're struggling and it's like the resistance, like it's pulling you, you're excited, you're like whatever, it's fun. It's not work like most people deem work, which is the best part about it. I want to, so basically your diet now, you said you're more like carnivore-ish. So you basically just eat, is it just meat and avocados basically, and meat, eggs, and avocados? Is that the general gist of what you typically consume, or is there anything else in there?
So I feel like the best way to describe how I eat is like a keto carnivore hybrid, but really I just try and make sure that the foods I consume have no sugar, no carbs. So high fat, high protein is my go-to. I don't get like bummed or upset with myself if my meal has more fat than protein or whatnot. I try to just stick to like green vegetables because those are safe and super good for you. But I do eat a ton of meat, but I also eat a ton of fat, tons of cheese. I know people have problems with that, but tons of cheese, tons of butter, coconut oil, avocado. Like bacon is a staple of my diet. Like I consume it on a daily basis. It's like a running joke with anyone who knows me. It's disgusting, but like, so I mean, and the only reason I tried keto first and I didn't stick with it because I can't allow myself to participate in things in which there are extremes. So keto, you could be so extreme where you're constantly testing yourself and making sure that you're in ketosis. And I'm like, I just see this being really bad for me mentally, and me being really upset and frustrated with myself if I can't be perfect and in ketosis all the time. So I was like, we're just going to not do that. But through focusing on no sugar, no carbs, high fat, high protein, I don't have calorie count. It's almost impossible to overeat. You feel disgusting before you do.
Sure.
And I mean, everything is super, super satisfying. And before I had super low energy levels and was like constantly getting B12 shots and whatnot. And now if I feel like lethargic, I eat a piece of red meat or some cheese real quick and I immediately feel so much better. So I've developed this way of eating so that I don't even have to think about it. It's just, these are the things that I can, these are the things that I can't, but there's no box that I have to shove myself in, basically.
I love it. It's a lifestyle. So you've made it an absolute lifestyle. It's not a structured, and I love that. That's exactly how I eat. Like, it's like, I don't track calories. I don't track macronutrients. I test probably once every 4 months. Like, it's not it's like, hey, this is a lifestyle. I'm going to be in and out. It's okay. Life goes on. This is how I eat. So I love that. I love that you're like flexible with it. It's cool. Just I eat fat and protein for the most part.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Now I want to jump into kind of a unique piece. I've never discussed this before on the podcast, but there's probably no one better to pick their brain on this than you. I'm big on wine, and I'm very open to discussing. I'm very open to discussing like every like other aspects. First off, do you drink wine? Do you drink or do you drink?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
What's your favorite type of wine?
I'm a big fan of Malbecs and Sauvignon Blancs.
Oh, good. We'll have to make another trip. After I fly to Arizona, Josh and I come to a yoga class, we'll hop over to Napa and we'll go on a wine tour. That would be fun. I want to jump into cannabis because this is a fascinating area, and I know you have retreats. I'm super interested to learn more about those. But like, I think it's a growing realm. I think if you were to revert back 2 years ago, like even my own parents, like you go back to 2 years ago, my dad was a police officer. And so like it was a big, even though like when he was in the military, I'm sure it was a thing. Like he was always like, oh, be careful. But now it's like a completely different perspective. He's like, oh, I get it now because he understands like more of the science behind it. But can you tell, I think we're starting to see this change, especially with the CBD piece and becoming more and more prevalent. So I think people are becoming more and more open to cannabis. So first off, like, what was it? You talked a little bit about what cannabis did for you, but like, talk a little bit more about cannabis, some of its benefits, and like some of the things it's done, particularly for you or people that you've worked with.
So for me personally, it gave me my quality of life back. I wasn't dependent on prescriptions to do that for me, prescriptions that I would have then been addicted to long term, and it would have been a lifelong thing. So after paralyzing my stomach, I started to understand how important natural medicine was. And once I actually started to see that working, it became even more important to me. So I've been using cannabis as a medicine since 2009, so for 10 years now, and I didn't start openly speaking about it on social media until last year. And a lot of that was fear of where other people were. And then I just decided that for me to be the most authentic version of myself, I needed to share this with people, mostly because I felt guilty being high around other people and not being able to say anything. It made me paranoid and uncomfortable. And I felt like I wasn't doing everything that I talk about any favors by not disclosing a very important piece of how I deal with my anxiety. So not only does cannabis help me have an appetite and control my nausea when I do experience those things, it's my go-to for anxiety. And I am a very, very, very anxious person. And I get overwhelmed super easy. And it's nothing that I can't like talk myself down from, but I used to be so anxious that I would have panic attacks like openly in public, and I would throw up or I would pass out, or like it was super extreme and intense. And so I know that my breath is like a huge part of that, but sometimes what cannabis does for me is helps me create that pause. It helps me slow down long enough so that I can find my breath again, because sometimes I just get so ahead of myself that it's bigger than me and I need help. So I turn to plant medicine to help me when I need to slow myself down and refocus and be like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. Like we've gotten through worse. We're going to get through this too. And then I've recently shifted through personally wanting to know more about cannabis. And now that more people are open and willing to talk about it, I use more CBD than THC. And I'm super, super grateful for CBD being like 100% legal now, because it's been a huge game changer, and CBD helps with my ADD as well. So something that I've been able to get from cannabis is, rather than, I guess some people, so I guess like with Adderall, if you don't need it, it makes you feel like you're on speed. Mm-hmm. But if you do need it, it just like evens you out unless you take too much. So cannabis, what it does for me is give me that tunnel vision so that I can focus on one task at a time. So some people can't focus on anything. Right. I get like hyper-focused. Yeah, I get like hyper-focused, but CBD does that even more so for me. Plus CBD, I love to use when I'm like in a creative like lull, or I'm not feeling like super inspired, just as like a slight like shift of head, if that makes sense. So maybe I'm looking at something, I don't want to say like the wrong way, but like negatively, or I'm creating resistance, or if I could just like stop needing things to be my way or right or whatever, right. I could see them for what they really are and then move in a different direction. And then it's given me a community of people who even more so than the yoga community is truly non-judgmental, because people use cannabis because they just want to feel good. And that's my whole thing about the retreats is start feeling good. Like you can do that for yourself today, and that's all any of us want. So I don't care why you use cannabis. I don't care why you do yoga, as long as you're doing it to feel better and it is enhancing the quality of your life. I mean, if you want to smoke pot for fun, that's fun. Why not? Right. But it truly can be used like as a medicine, and that's how I use it. So these retreats that I started, I wanted to create a space where like-minded people could come together and meet people that they probably would have never otherwise, in a very safe setting where they feel comfortable. And it's cannabis friendly, not cannabis mandatory. So you don't have to consume, or you can consume as much as you want to. And me being a yoga teacher, it was really important to me from all of my years of teaching that this wasn't a yoga retreat, because I didn't want to discourage anyone who maybe doesn't want to do yoga or is unfamiliar with it to not come. So like, obviously yoga is the foundation of everything that I do, and there's yoga woven into the retreats, but it's a community and wellness experience. So I have comics come out and do a comedy show on the first night, so we can just like make fun of all the things that make us uncomfortable and get over it, because comedy has been like one of the greatest therapies for me. Like, I have such a dry sense of humor now, and I can make fun of anything that I do and not feel, I don't have any shame anymore surrounding anything that I do. One, I don't do shitty things anymore that like cause and create shame. But two, I don't get embarrassed or feel any kind of negativity surrounding any of my humanness. Like, you can't be perfect all the time. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to do uncomfortable things. Just like, whatever, get over it. So for this upcoming retreat that I have in June, Saturday we'll wake up and do yoga, and then we're going to go to Copper State, which is a pretty large grow in Arizona. It's not too far from where I have my 40 acres in Snowflake, and we're going to do a grow tour. And one of our sponsors actually develops their edibles out of Copper State Growth. They're going to teach us how to make edibles. And then we'll come back and we'll have a game night, do like Cards Against Humanity. Again, like, I just love introducing like vulgar things because it makes people uncomfortable. Like, I just want to make people uncomfortable so they can just get over themselves. That's really all it is. Just get over yourself and start enjoying yourself. So we do the game night. We have like giant Jenga, cornhole, all that stuff. And we do medicated s'mores. And then Sunday we wake up. I have a couple instructors coming out from California to do like aerial yoga, arm balancing, inversion, stuff like that. And then we'll go on our way. So it's super quick, just the weekend. No one has to take time off from work.
That's incredible. That's really cool. I love that. I love that idea. And I love that you're changing the stigma. Well, one, getting people over themselves. I love that. And two, I do think there's still this stigma in some capacity. But like you said, like surrounding CBD or cannabis in general, like, but you're helping overcome that. Like, a lot of people do see extreme benefits from it medicinally, and to me it was always interesting because the minute I got Scooter, my dog, like the first thing I was thinking about was like, I need to get him CBD because he has a lot of anxiety. Like, luckily my mom is close by, so she comes and sees him in the afternoon, but I leave and I go to work, and like, I know he's waiting, he's around, he's like, and he's got so much, like, sometimes he'll throw up because he's so anxious, and I'm like, so like, I was like, I'm giving this to him, but like, I never even thought about it. And then I was at an event, a keto event actually, and a company gave me like this CBD spray, and it's just CBD. It doesn't have any THC in it, but for me, it's been a game changer. And like, I use it, and I use it a lot for like, I feel like better recovery, less inflammation.
Yeah.
And I sleep better because I have horrible sleep. And in the past, like in college, there were some nights where I used to like smoke solely to try and sleep. Like, that was solely the intent. It wasn't like I was trying to go out and party and do all this stuff. It was like, I'm just trying to sleep because my brain's going a million miles a minute. And I was like, I just need to recover and sleep. And so I do think there's a big play for that. And I love that you're sharing that piece with the world. And I think a lot of people can see benefits really from that.
Yeah, I use CBD all the time for inflammation and recovery. I'm actually dealing with like a slight hamstring tear, and CBD is I'm constantly putting it on, taking it capsule form. CBD, like the tinctures, the oils, that's my favorite way to use it. But I also noticed, and I've done like a little bit of research on this, so like I don't know too much on the topic, but when I did first cut sugar and carbs, like obviously you lose weight, you just like can't help but do that. But I didn't realize how swollen and inflamed I was from eating things like sugar and carbs, and CBD helped to get that under control too. And I mean, obviously like autoimmune diseases and whatever, like inflammation based, but I then started thinking about like friends of mine who have arthritis and like if that was caused by inflammation and say they had been using CBD like 10, 15 years ago, like would this be a problem that they were experiencing now?
Right. 100%. And she'll probably kill me for saying this, but my aunt actually, and she needs it desperately. She has MS and like feels ridiculously better when she has cannabis versus when she doesn't. My other aunt has a severe form of arthritis and literally cannot function in her day without it. And it's fascinating. I try and tell my mom about it. She has Crohn's, but she sees a lot of benefits not only from a ketogenic diet, but she does use CBD sometimes. But it's amazing to see like there are people that like literally need this to function, and there is a benefit. And I think people just see the extremes of abuse, and they don't really see like, oh, there's this like cool middle ground where like people just see incredible benefits and are using it for some really beneficial reasons. So that's awesome.
Well, it was another reason why I wanted to be very transparent on social media, and another reason for starting the retreats was I wanted to show people you can be successful, you can be athletic, you can be driven, you can be creative, you can be healthy. You don't have to be like the stoner with dreadlocks wearing the tie-dye t-shirt who's just eating pizza on his couch. Like,
right. Right.
Like, I like to believe that I'm very successful and like I'm very healthy and very motivated, and I probably consume more cannabis than most people I know. Like, I don't allow that to negatively affect me. I mean, with anything, it's like if you're going to be drinking too much and you're going to allow that to negatively and like affect you, it's not the alcohol, it's you. Like,
right.
So I've met some of the most amazing people in the cannabis industry, and I can't wait for it to become legal and just to see the shift that happens, because you've already spoken to it. The shift has already taken place and people are already starting to have these conversations and look at it a little differently. But once people are comfortable asking these questions publicly, maybe, I feel like the people who really need the help will start to get it.
For sure. Well, we're coming close to the end here. You've talked about so many incredible things. One of the things is you've built an incredible brand, especially on social media. You have this amazing following. People love it, and I think it really stems from like your authenticity and transparency. Like I think people get attracted to that. That's like they're like, wow, that's incredible. I want to be like that. Or I'm like that and I want to be friends with her. So what are some things that you hope to be able to do with your social? I mean, you put a lot about like I know your tattoos are like all over the place. They're freaking, I know there's a story behind them. And one day we'll have to sit down and talk about all the different stories. Cause like I have two and there's definitely stories behind them. But what do you hope to, like, what's your goal with that? What's your goal? Like, are you trying to share like, hey, just be you sort of thing on social media? What is that?
So my Instagram is for me. Everything that I do is selfishly for me. So the retreats are for me. My Instagram is for me. My Instagram is like a public journal. It's a place where I can express myself. And if I didn't have that, I think it would just, I would need a way. It just helps me people. It helps remind me that like I'm human and like I don't need to be perfect all the time. But it's for me. It's a place where I can speak about mental health, and if people resonate with that, that's cool. But I don't need them to. I'm just gonna keep posting what I'm posting regardless. And the tattoo stuff, like that's a personal interest. It's a hobby of mine, obviously, and it's art. I like to share it, and a couple of years ago, I would have never posted anything in which I wasn't completely covered up. So now I like to also speak to body positivity as this is just a vessel. This is just skin and bones and nothing else. And the more tattoos I put on it, the more I feel like myself and the more I feel like I'm coming out of my shell. But this is temporary. This doesn't mean anything. So I can put that up on there. And if you choose to sexualize what I'm, doing, or you have any feelings or whatever, that's stuff that you should notice and you should work on. That's not anything that I'm doing. So my page is for me. I post whatever I'm, thinking or going through personally at that moment. I try and keep it super real, and I try and share in a way. I I hate when I jump onto Instagram and people just share the best moments of their life. I want you to know when I'm having a shitty day. I want you to know how I got to Mexico. I just want to be real. If you have questions, I will always answer them. And I think that is why, like, my brand has been successful. I answer every single DM that I get. I respond to every single comment that someone posts on my page. I want to build a community of people, and to do that, you have to engage with the people who engage with you and notice them and respect them. And I just want to be seen and heard for who I really am, and that's all I want to do for other people.
Oh, that's so incredible. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Because I see a lot of people who just put their highlight card on social media, and then it gets people down because they're like, well, I'm not like that. And I'm like, I guarantee you they're not fucking like that all the time. Like, like that's just their highlight card. Stop comparing your life to their highlights. Like, that's their best moments, like them doing this. And a lot of times it's just fake. It's not even real. Like, it's not even who they truly are. And I love that you share that, and you're just like, this is him, this is me. Like, I share my tough times. I'm going to share with you my good times and everything in between. Like, I love that. I love it. I love it. And I hope so many people take that away from here. Like, and you've built an enormous following, and I think in large part it stems from that because you're so authentic. You're just you, and people become attracted to that. They're like, and a lot of times people be like, I want to be like that. Well, just do it. Like, just be you.
Exactly.
Like, don't say I want to be like her. I wish I had her. Like, you do. You have her. Like, you can do it. It's just like, be vulnerable. Be willing to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
Love that. And the last thing I want to ask you is, this year, you've overcome a lot. Like you said, October was a huge shifting point for you. What are some goals, some things that you hope to accomplish within the next year, some things that you have planned? I know you're doing these retreats, and they sound incredible, but what are some goals that Paige has?
So all of my goals right now are surrounding my retreats and my property up there. So I bought 40 acres in Snowflake, Arizona.
Awesome. And
right now we're working on getting 3,600 square feet of decking built to put the tents that I use on. So there are these 16-foot canvas bell tents. So you can fit like 3 queen-size beds in them. They're super huge. And then we're building a big community yoga platform. And then a girlfriend of mine and me are starting a church so that we can start doing ayahuasca ceremonies out there in the future. So long term, after this retreat, I have a shipping container that we're going to convert into a really cool bathroom space. And I've had a lot of really, really cool people and other brands and concepts reach out to me for future retreats that I can't really speak to, but everything is in development for that. That's really, I would love to see that become like my main source of income.
Incredible.
So, and I don't live up there. It's just a community space for the most part. So I'd like to be able to like Airbnb it out when I'm not there, or let other teachers use it for retreats of their own and whatnot. Cause it's 45 minutes from the Petrified Forest and Painted Desert National Park. So I have like petrified wood on my property and like these crazy bounced rocks everywhere. It's like a super, like, just energetically, it's a really, really awesome space. But yeah, so lots of building projects, and I've never done anything like that before, so I'm learning a bunch right now.
That's incredible. What I have to ask, have you ever done ayahuasca?
I have not, but my friend Kim just got back from doing it in Mexico, and she's like, the world needs this. I've done DMT, and I'm a big fan of microdosing on mushrooms. Like, that's another go-to medicine for me, to be honest. I do it quite frequently, and like doing like microdosing acid. Ayahuasca is such, like, DMT was so intense for me that I'm like, oh my God, ayahuasca is going to be, it's not for fun. You don't do it for fun.
Right,
you do it with intention, and it's very real. And the things that came up for me for DMT, I was like, I need to work through this. Last year, holy shit. Yeah. I went through so much. Like, I realized that I had like crazy codependency issues and like the food stuff and whatnot. So I'm looking into an ayahuasca ceremony that's happening in Joshua Tree next month. And I decided, like, I think that would be like the perfect setting. I have like a really special connection with Joshua Tree, but I decided that would probably be the perfect setting, but it hasn't felt right until now. So Got to do that, and then we're trying to go to a big ayahuasca conference that's happening in Spain. So a bunch of the big like ayahuasca influencers and leaders of the world are going to be meeting up there and talking about it, and like basically what's going on in that whole world and realm. But yeah, so a lot.
Well, you'll have to send me information on it. I've always been fascinated by it. I talked to Aubrey Marcus about it one time. We're sitting in the sauna on it, and he was talking about like how it completely changed his life. And I know he's talked about it on multiple podcasts. And I think he goes to like Peru or somewhere to do it.
Yeah.
And I've always been like, like I've always wanted to do it, but I'm fascinated by it. And I think there's so many people who experience incredible things. Honestly, they come out on the other side a lot better person than they did going into it, and a lot more open and understanding of who they are truly as a human being and some of the things that they've gone through and how to overcome them. So that's pretty cool.
And even physically, so me and my friend Kim, we've known each other since we were 15. We both struggled with our eating disorders together, and we've both like been able to overcome them. And we both have crazy hormone issues because of our eating disorders. I never started my period when I was younger. So when I was 17, my doctors put me on birth control to have a period. So for many years, I never had one unless I was on birth control. And then I ended up being allergic to the Depo shot and was on that for a whole year, and then had crazy like hormonal consequences because of that and whatever. But she's now to the point where she's been married for a couple years, and her husband want to have kids, and she has a super irregular period, and she's been taking hormones, and she's 29, and they were seriously considering doing IVF. And I was like, what for what? Like, that's so extreme. But also, I guess I kind of get it. Like, if you're that desperate, and they've been trying for 2 years and nothing's working. So she was reading that ayahuasca is basically a total body reset. So she went, and 24 hours exactly after she did ayahuasca, she started her period after not having it for like 100 days or something crazy like that.
Wow.
And now it's regular, and like, so when she told me that, I was like, for nothing else, I think that people need to go, because it's a reset. Like, you reconnect with, the collective consciousness, and you get in tune with nature and get regrounded and whatnot. And all the mental stuff is like a bonus.
Right. That's incredible. Well, definitely keep me posted, because we might have to jump from a yoga class at your place to Napa Valley over to Peru.
Right? Super down. Always down to travel.
That's awesome. Well, last thing I wanted to say is where can people find you? Where are you? I know you're huge on Instagram. Do you do stuff on Facebook, YouTube? Where your website for your retreats? What else is there?
Basically, just Instagram.
Okay.
In being super overwhelmed, I'm like, that's about all I can handle. Yeah. So, like I said, I respond to all my DMs and my comments. My main page is at Paige Yeaton. Or you can find me at my Cannabis Retreat page, which is just at the Cannabis Retreats. The link to all the information is in both of my bios. My website is currently under construction, but the link to the itinerary and where you can purchase tickets is in my bio. If you have any questions, just DM me, leave a comment on any of my photos, and I will get back to you.
Perfect. And I'll make sure I post those so people could reach out and find you directly.
Thank you.
But yeah, of course. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. I think you're opening this whole new world for people and really allowing them to understand like how to step into their best self and just be truly who they are. Like, just be authentic, be who you are. And I really appreciate you jumping on, and I'm serious. I'm gonna be with Josh on Friday, and I'm gonna talk to him that we have to come out at some point this year and come and see you and come and see your new place.
Well, he's coming out to my retreat, and Jackie, his girlfriend, is actually going to do dry needling and cupping and massage for everyone out there. So, Josh's mom is coming.
I gotta look into these dates. I'll look into the dates, and if I can make it, I'm there.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Paige. I appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon.